everyone. Welcome back to Shebar's podcast. Today's guest is Robert. Hi, Robert.
Hi, how are you, Brooke?
Great. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited.
So, can you tell our listeners when you first realized you wanted to become an author?
Yeah, I spent most of my working career in the computer business,
Oh,
and I was chief technology officer in a small startup, and we
ooh.
failed to get our final financing, and so the company folded. And I thought, what do I want to do? So I thought, and for years I'd had ideas for books in my head. In fact, when I was 20 something, I'd written a book of horror stories. So I thought,
Oh.
I'm going to give this a try. And so I started, had a number of books that I was never able to complete because they ran out of steam. Then I finally completed a book, and I found a great editor, and I submitted the book to her, and she gave me a 40-page write-up of where the book wasn't working.
Wow.
And I thought, this book isn't much good. She was very kind when she did it, but so I got to know her quite well, and she actually became my mentor and mentored
Oh,
me through my first real book, Junkie.
wow.
And it was one of those things. I was meeting her for breakfast, and I told her about an alley that I used to walk by every day.
Mhm.
And this alley was just full of drug addicts. It was in the downtown east side of Vancouver, which is the sketchier part of town. And I had a contract with a company there, and I used to walk past this alley, and I said to her, "It's absolutely horrible, this alley. I can't imagine what it would be like to wake up in an alley like that."
Mhm.
And she said, "No, I wonder. Uh, that sounds like a book. Who do you think it could be who could wake up in an alley like that?" And I thought, well, it would be kind of ironic if it was a lawyer or maybe a cop. Yeah, a
Oh,
cop. And that was how my first book, Junkie, started, which
wow.
is about a drug addicted cop who wakes up in that alley one morning covered in blood. So that's how the book
Wow.
started. And that's now become a series of, I've just recently finished the seventh book. So,
Wow. Did you
yeah.
get have you gotten good feedback from the series?
Yeah. I've got, I have an email list of people who like my books, and I get wonderful feedback from them. And
Ooh.
several of them are on what I call my launch team. When I've
Mhm.
finished a book, and it's almost ready to publish, I send it out to a bunch of them, and they critique it and tell me where it's wrong. And I mean, a couple of times they've told me things that I completely missed. I got completely wrong. And of course, they find a bunch of typos and things. And I get such great encouragement from them that it's the thing that drives me on to write the next book.
Yeah, it's good to have that support team though behind
Oh, it
you
is.
to make sure
Mm-hmm.
everything's right. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I've always worked in teams, and writing, by its very nature, is a kind of a one-person job usually. So it's
Hmm.
really nice to have those people that I can communicate with who are like part of my team.
Oh wow, that's amazing. So who or what inspired you to start writing?
Well, I think it had been in me for a long while.
Oh.
I was always thinking of ideas. Oh, that would make a great book. And I read. I'm an avid reader. I read all the time. And I'd read books, and I think, that would be good. But wouldn't this be a great twist to it?
Hmm.
And it's a and when this company that I was in folded,
Hmm.
it just looked like the great opportunity to give it a try.
So do you do
So
it full time now?
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
wow, that's
yeah.
nice. So what does
It
your
is
family
nice.
think about it?
They're great. They're so supportive. My wife is. I dedicate all my books to my wife. She's been so
Oh.
supportive of the whole process, and um, and I have a number of kids, and they're all big fans, so it's great.
Wow. So can you give our listeners like a brief summary of your series?
Sure, yeah. As I said, the first book, Junkie, starts off with the protagonist, whose name is Cal Rogan, waking up in an alley, drunk. Still feeling the effects of the drugs he's been taking. He's a drug addicted ex-cop. He's got blood all over him, and later on in the day, he discovers his best friend has been killed, and of course, the cops think that he did it. And he knows he didn't, and he's determined to find out who actually did kill his best friend. And so he manages to keep himself sober and clean enough to solve the crime and to reestablish a relationship with his 8-year-old daughter. And so in subsequent books, he gets off drugs, though sometimes he will have lapses back when bad things happen to him. And drugs feature a lot in the books, a lot of issues with drug gangs. And the seventh book, the latest book, it was one of those books where I'd read a book a few years back in a similar vein, and I thought, I can see a great twist that would make that book better. So that's what I've done with Jail. It's a case of a young guy who is falsely accused of the murder of his girlfriend. And he's in jail, and his sister persuades my protagonist, who at this point is a private investigator, to try and prove that he's innocent. And so he sets out to do that. But there are some interesting twists and turns in it. And so it's a book that I'm quite proud of. It's called Jailed.
I do have a question. Do we have to read your book series one, like in order? Or can we read it outside of order and it still makes sense to us?
Yeah, absolutely. You can read it out of order. There are only 2 books where the plot from one slightly carries over into the other, but it doesn't make any difference. You can read them in any order.
Oh, okay. And we can order them from your website, right?
Go to my website, which is robertpfrench.com, and there's links to where the books can be ordered.
Okay. Ooh, I'm gonna add that to my reading list.
Oh, great.
I love the way you're describing them. It sounds like Law and Order to me. I love Law and Order.
Yeah. Well, they're quite gritty in places. Quite a lot of swearing by people who live on the streets. But I try not to make them too graphically violent. But there is obviously blood and violence in it, but I keep away from the graphic violence.
Gotcha. How did you develop your characters? Like, how did you form them and create them?
Well, it's interesting. A couple of characters are people that I actually knew. When I was doing my my research for the first book, Junkie, I met a number of drug addicts and a few alcoholics, people living on the streets, because my protagonist is living on the streets and I needed to know more about that. And one of those people that I knew became the character Roy in the book, who's a really important character in the book. And so that was lovely because although the Roy in the book was very, very different in one respect from the real Roy, they had so much in common that it was lovely to write. So, so some of the characters are people that I know, but the characters, I don't plan my books in advance a lot. I let the characters develop, and occasionally they will do something out of character, which kind of builds on their character, because we all do things that are different from time to time. So I let the characters kind of build themselves, as it were. That's a strange concept, but when I'm writing a new character, I always try and do things that don't fit. For example, if I'm writing a villain, character, I'll have them do something really nice. I mean, one of the characters who is in several of the books, he's a gangbanger. He's like 6'7". He's absolutely brutal, but he's always very, very kind to disabled people.
Oh, wow.
And, so it's nice to have little, and that just came about completely by accident. So yeah, I like to have characters who've got lots of characteristics to them.
Nice. So are you going to do any spin-off books from the side characters in your book? You are?
Yes, I am. In the first book, Cal reestablishes his relationship with his 8-year-old daughter. And now the 7th book, she's now 13 years old. And I'm going to do a spin-off series of her when she's 30.
Oh, wow.
Set in 2040.
Oh, wow.
Because one of my interests is, because of my technology background, what the future is going to look like from the point of view of technology and virtual reality and things like that. And so I want to build those in and have her solve a crime that is a crime that couldn't be committed today because our technology isn't where it should be for the crime to be committed today, but that it will very likely be a crime that could be committed in 2040.
Ooh, when is this coming out?
I hope to have it out before the end of this year. I'm working on the 8th Cal Rogan book, but I want to, as soon as I've got that finished, I want to write the first Ellie Rogan book. So so nice. That's going to be fun. Yeah.
That is nice. I can't wait to read them. Now I'm like interested. My mouth's all open. Yeah. So I do have one last question. What advice would you give our listeners who want to pursue a full-time writing career such as yourself?
Okay, well, I think it's a great thing to do. A mistake that I made is I assumed because I was an avid reader that I would know how to construct a book, and turns out I didn't. So any writer, somebody who wants to be a writer needs to take some classes and courses in writing, especially if they can find courses that are specific to their genre. Also, if they can find a mentor, if there's, for example, an author that they really respect, contact that author and maybe they will mentor them, because the editor that I had, who was my mentor for my first 2 books, she turned me into a writer.
Wow.
And most authors, even some of the big name authors, can be extremely generous in offering their time and advice. So that would be my biggest thing to somebody who wants to become a writer. Find yourself a mentor who is an author who has published books and whose books you like and who you respect. And I think that will make a huge, huge difference, because today anyone can write a book and put it up on Amazon. So there are thousands and thousands of books up on Amazon, and it's very, very, very competitive.
Oh, yeah.
So make sure the most important thing is that your books are great. And a great way to do that is to have somebody as a mentor.
That's true. That's really great advice, because I'm starting my first book, but I'm like stuck. So I'm like, I don't know. But I've interviewed so many authors and they all have great advice, and I'm listening to them, but it's hard to start your very first book. Like my brain is just everywhere.
It is. It's difficult. The other thing that you need with your book is a good editor. Not just somebody who can check the spelling and check the grammar, but an editor who will look at the structure of the book and the characters and the plot lines. So having a good editor is an absolute must, because they will also be a mentor to you.
Oh, okay. That is great advice too. I want to thank you so much, Robert, for coming on my podcast today and chatting with me.
I've loved it. Thank you very much, Brooke. It's been really nice.
You have a great day.
And you.